A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus spoke to the crowds about the kingdom of God, and he healed those who needed to be cured. As the day was drawing to a close, the 12 approached him and said, "Dismiss the crowd, so that they can go to the surrounding villages and farms, and find lodging and provisions, for we are in a deserted place here." He said to them, "Give them some food yourselves." And they replied, 5 loaves and 2 fish are all we have, unless we ourselves go and buy food for all these people." Now the men there numbered about 5,000. Then he said to his disciples, "Have them sit down in groups of about 50. They did so, and made them sit down. Then taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he said the blessing over them, broke them, and gave them to the disciples to set before the crowd. They all ate and were satisfied. And when the leftover fragments were picked up, they filled 12 wicker baskets. The Gospel of the Lord. Everything the Lord keeps bringing to my heart these days, especially as I read this gospel, and especially right now as I'm in the midst of my time at the Institute for Christi Formation, I can't help but relate this gospel to a reflection on the priesthood itself. Because at the end of the day, no priests, no Eucharist. And no Eucharist, no church. It's really that simple and that sacred. And in today's gospel, Jesus tells his disciples to feed the crowd, "Give them something to eat yourselves," he says. And the apostles, overwhelmed and uncertain, bring him these 5 loaves and 2 fish. And what does Jesus do? He takes the loaves, he blesses them, breaks them, and gives them to the disciples, who then give them to the people. Can't really miss that detail right there, because the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000 doesn't actually happen, at least in Luke's gospel, does not happen directly in Jesus' hands alone. It's passed through the hands of the apostles, the hands of his first priests. And this is an image of the church itself, that Christ entrusting his grace to be dispensers of his grace to his priests, so that it might be distributed to the people. And that threefold movement, blessed, broken, given, is not only a Eucharistic action, it is the very shape of the priesthood itself. A man is called to the priesthood, a man called to the priesthood is set apart, formed, consecrated, and anointed, not for himself, but for the mission of the salvation of souls. And he is entrusted with something greater than himself. He is blessed by the Father as a son, chosen to stand in the person of Christ, blessed in his person to be a father, to be a spiritual father, as a son who receives everything from the Almighty Father, the Father who loves us so dearly. But that blessing does not come without some cross, some cost. Priests are not superhuman. They carry wounds, just as Christ did, even after his just as Christ does after his resurrection. The priesthood is not this pedestal, this kind of overarching overseer mentality, but it is a path of cruciform love. And as Christ was broken on the cross, so too the priest shares in that breaking, the dying to self, the bearing of others' burdens, the weight of sins from the confessional, and the quiet sorrow of spiritual fatherhood. And this is not some tragedy. It's not something to pity a priest over. It's a very beautiful mystery. It is where the grace pours in to the man who is called and ordained to serve. The Lord calls men to the priesthood not despite their wounds, but very often through them. And that brokenness becomes a vessel of mercy and compassion and a real fatherly love for the children entrusted to his care. Because a priest is not his own. He is poured out like a libation and given completely to the church, offered in love for the salvation of souls. And just as Christ gave himself fully for his bride, the church, so too must every priest, blessed, broken, and given. The miracle of the loaves here is more than just a moment of abundance. It's an actual icon of the church's life. The people that had followed Jesus to a deserted place, worn out from their journey, hungry in body and soul, and he fed them, he nourished them. And when we too are exhausted, confused, or running on empty, when we feel spent from our journey, and have been blessed, broken, and given to the point of a collapse, where do we go? We go to Jesus. We run to the Eucharist because Christ in the Blessed Sacrament is not a symbol. He is a person, and he is there. He knows the depths of everything you and I carry. He sees our hunger. He offers himself again and again in the humble disguise of bread and wine, which really isn't bread and wine. It's himself, his body, blood, soul, divinity, poured out completely to satisfy you completely. To say that the Eucharist is just some symbol is to reject the very love of God. A love that becomes really present for us and poured out through the hands of a broken priest, a man who is blessed, broken, and given on our behalf. And this Eucharist, the Eucharist, and the priesthood are not symbolic. They are symbiotic. They cannot live, they cannot have one without the other. And if we want more priests, then we must go to the Eucharist. If we want refreshment on the journey, we have to go to the Eucharist. The church needs the Eucharist, and the church needs priests, because without either one of those, the Catholic Church would cease to exist. I believe it was either St. Francis of Assisi or St. Padre Pio that it would be easier for one of them said that it would be easier for the world to exist without the light of the sun than without the Eucharist. Again, if we want more priests, then we must go to the Eucharist, because vocations are born in silence before the Blessed Sacrament. In that stillness of adoration, a young man will hear the Lord whisper, "Will you be bread in my hands? Will you be blessed, broken and given for others?" Let us beg the Eucharistic Lord to raise up laborers for his harvest, men who will give their lives for the church, blessed, broken, and given, as Christ gave his life for us. Praise be Jesus Christ, now and forever.